for students. One knife, no witnesses, no sound, and a mystery that paralyzed a college town. How could 4 people be killed in their sleep without anyone noticing? And how did the investigation lead to Bryan Kohberger, a man studying criminal justice? Tonight, we break down the facts of a quadruple homicide in Moscow, Idaho, and examine what we really know, what we still don't, and whether the case against Kohberger is as airtight as prosecutors claim. It was the early morning hours of Sunday, November 13th, 2022. In the college town of Moscow, Idaho, 6 University of Idaho students were staying at a rental house just off campus, known for its proximity to fraternities and student parties. Inside that house were Madison Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana Kernadle, Ethan Chapin, and 2 surviving roommates, DM and BF. Sometime between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m., someone entered the home and stabbed 4 of the students to death while they slept. Some were found in bed. Others appeared to have fought back. None of the 2 surviving roommates were harmed, and none of the neighbors reported hearing screams. The scene was described by first responders as gruesome. Blood had seeped out onto the walls, but there was no sign of forced entry. What followed was a national frenzy. The case dominated headlines, TikTok feeds, and Reddit threads. And the police? They had very little to go on, at first. To understand the shock of this case, you have to understand who the victims were. Kaylee Goncalves, 21, was a senior preparing to graduate and move to Texas for a new job. She was at the house visiting her best friend. Madison Mogen, also 21, was that best friend, smart, funny, with a tight bond to Kaylee since high school. The 2 were inseparable. Xana Kernadle, 20, was staying the night with her boyfriend, Ethan Chapin, 20. They were a young couple, reportedly enjoying their evening after attending a campus event. For lives, no enemies, no known threats, and no known motive, which raised the chilling question, was this random? The details of the attack suggested premeditation. The killer likely entered through a sliding glass door. They brought a fixed-blade knife, possibly a K-bar combat knife, and they moved through the home, targeting people one by one. Authorities later revealed that a leather knife sheath was found near Madison's body, bearing a U.S. Marine Corps insignia. DNA was recovered from the snap button of that sheath. Still, it didn't match anyone in the system. No suspect was publicly named for weeks. Then, on December 30th, 2022, over 2,000 miles away, the FBI arrested Bryan Christopher Kohberger, a 28-year-old PhD criminology student in Pullman, Washington, just 10 miles from Moscow. Kohberger was studying criminal justice at Washington State University and lived in an apartment just across the state line. He'd previously earned degrees in psychology and criminal justice from DeSales University in Pennsylvania, where he also reportedly studied under a professor who was an expert on serial killers. Some classmates described him as socially awkward, while others recalled him dominating classroom discussions about forensic evidence and criminal behavior. But there were deeper signs of something unusual. Kohberger had once posted in a Reddit forum seeking participants for a study on how emotions and psychological traits influence decision-making when committing a crime. In hindsight, many now believe that post may have revealed more than it intended. Let's talk evidence. First, the DNA match. Investigators pulled DNA from the knife sheath found at the crime scene. They then retrieved trash from the Kohberger family's home in Pennsylvania and used familial DNA analysis to find a strong match to Bryan Kohberger. Second, cell phone data. Kohberger's phone was off during the window of the murders, between 2:47 a.m. and 4:48 a.m., but data showed he had been near the victim's house on at least 12 occasions in the months leading up to the killings. Third, vehicle tracking. A white Hyundai Elantra seen on surveillance footage near the victim's home during the time of the murders matched the car Kohberger drove. Investigators reviewed dozens of traffic cams, tracing the car's path from Pullman to Moscow and back. Finally, witness testimony. One of the surviving roommates reported hearing a male voice say something like, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." She then saw a masked figure dressed in black, walking past her toward the exit. She locked herself in her room. Police weren't called for nearly 8 hours. This delay sparked criticism, but investigators later said the roommates thought their friends were just unconscious or hungover. Kohberger was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary. He stood silent at his arraignment, so the judge entered a not guilty plea on his behalf. Prosecutors are seeking the death penalty. The trial is set to begin in August 2025 and is expected to last up to 3 months. In the meantime, the defense has launched an aggressive effort to challenge the state's case. They've raised questions about the DNA evidence, suggesting it could have been transferred secondarily, the cell phone data, arguing that being near the house isn't proof of guilt, and they've hinted at alternative suspects, though the judge ruled this speculative and inadmissible. Most recently, Kohberger's attorneys claimed he may be on the autism spectrum, arguing it could be a mitigating factor in avoiding the death penalty. The case hasn't been without drama. Media outlets, especially Dateline NBC, have aired new surveillance and cell phone data that prosecutors argue could prejudice the jury or jeopardize trial integrity. The defense says these leaks could potentially disqualify the state from seeking the death penalty altogether. Then came the DoorDash witness. A driver who delivered food to the house that night now claims she saw Kohberger near the residence just before the time of the murders, parked outside in a car matching his vehicle. If this testimony holds up, it could become the most direct link placing him at the scene. But also raises a new question. Why would someone planning a murder be so easily spotted? And another, why leave the knife sheath behind at all? Some believe it was a mistake. Others wonder if it was a message. Despite all the evidence, one thing remains frustratingly unclear: the motive. Kohberger reportedly had no known connection to the victims. He didn't attend the University of Idaho. No text, social media messages, or prior altercations have been revealed publicly. There is speculation that he may have targeted one of the women, perhaps Kaylee or Madison. But that's never been confirmed. What we do know is this: Kohberger was intensely interested in crime. He studied the psychology of murder. He conducted research on criminal behavior. And his digital footprint shows an obsession with how to get away with it. That doesn't mean he did it, but it certainly makes the jury's job harder. The trial is set to begin on August 18th, 2025, in Boise, Idaho. More than 1,500 potential jurors are being considered. Cameras will be allowed in the courtroom, but under strict limitations. Prosecutors will rely on forensics, surveillance, phone data, and behavioral analysis. The defense will try to sow doubt about every piece of it. For the families of the victims, it's been a long, excruciating wait. Kaylee's father, Steve Goncalves, has been particularly outspoken, vowing to attend every hearing and demanding justice. If convicted, Kohberger faces life in prison or death by lethal injection. If acquitted, the state will be left with no alternative suspect, and a community will be left in fear. This is more than just a true crime case. It's a test of our legal system, of forensic science, and of how we understand guilt in an age of digital footprints. And as the trial begins, one question will loom over it all. Can you prove what someone was thinking beyond a reasonable doubt? If you want more in-depth breakdowns like this one, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. We'll be covering the trial as it unfolds. Thanks for watching.